Charles.
Hello, lovely to see you.
Come on in.
Thank you so much.
So, welcome to my room. This is my room. This is the most important feature instrument in the room. Her name is Meghan, and she's especially trained not to bark, pant, breathe, or bark, or bite. Yes, and she actually loves when you play the piano. She goes to sleep, so she's very good. She's obviously not here during recordings, but yes, that's Meghan. And this is my Blüthner, beautiful Blüthner. It's a wonderful piano. Has a great warm sound. People like Chopin and Ravel used pianos like this, and also Rachmaninoff took it to New York City with him when he went to New York. And his wife, took his wife with him too. I'm gonna have these chairs, which are really nice for the room sound. And here are here is my favorite vocal chair, which I will tell you about in a little while. And here are the larger of the Louis XVI chairs. This is what I use for all kinds of things, which you will hear soon. So this is my room, and this is where everything happens.
So, do please tell us a little bit about it.
My name is Denise Mangiardi. I am a musician, foremost. I started off playing piano and singing when I was really young. I was about 10 when I actually started to sort of put things together. I remember I had a little manuscript book where you used to write in the notes, and I used to be fascinated by the lines and everything, something about the black and the white. I just loved it. And I started writing as soon as I could play, because I always sang before that, even when I was young. So I started playing and singing and writing my own music. And I was very influenced by the radio in New York City at that time, because in New York City we had a station called WNEW, and there was a guy named Zachary. I think it was the right station, but anyway, it was amazing disc jockey, and he played everything from jazz, blues, classical. So it was a huge influence. I used to go to sleep with it every night, wake up with it every morning, and I heard everything on that station, just everything. So it was a really big influence, and I was inspired by a lot of great musicians at the time. And then I studied classical piano for a while in college, but then I wasn't happy there. So I ended up going to Berklee College of Music, which I had no idea what I was expecting, because when I got there, I really didn't know a thing about improvising at all. And they throw you into these classes with these players who are always a little bit better than you, so you really learn fast how to kind of catch up. And so it was there where I started really loving the sounds and kind of the things that I just didn't realize how much I loved. And I really started getting into orchestration, because I was a orchestration and composition major there. And so I basically also did jazz piano. And so I started really getting into writing big time there. And then I had my piano teacher, his name is Ray Santisi. He used to, when he found out that I could sing, he used to make me sing, and he'd play piano. So it wasn't so great for my piano career, but I kind of took off doing that. So then when I left Berklee, I went to New York City, back to New York, and I went around looking for places to sit in. I thought that's what you're supposed to do. So I went around to every possible club you can imagine. And I went into this one club where this incredible person, who I had no idea, I didn't really appreciate who he was. His name was Alice Larkin. And he was dressed in a tuxedo, and he was playing very, his typical way, which I will explain in a minute. But anyway, I went up to him and asked if I could sing at the break. And he said, well, can you come back next week? So I came back the following week, and his wife, Crystal, was there. It was her birthday that night, and it turned out to be my birthday as well. And that had a big meaning for Alice. And so my mother had come as well, because it was my birthday. And he said to my mother, I'd like to coach your daughter. So I started taking lessons with him for 2 years, going to his house every Saturday. He used to be in his little robe, drinking his wild turkey. And he was a really great guy. And Alice Larkin played with Ella Fitzgerald, Joe Williams, everyone. And he had a regular gig at the Carnegie Tavern, which was a great There was a guy named Alistair Sims who used to do broadcasts from there. And Alice played there, sort of every single night. And a lot of amazing people came in. I remember one time Horace Silver was there, and he said to me, "You don't know how lucky you are." But anyway, that's how I took off and my jazz career, singing jazz. And then what happened was I went back to New York, and I was in New York, sorry, after I kept singing for a long time. But I wasn't happy just playing piano, singing. I wanted to play piano more, and I wanted to be more involved with the music. It wasn't enough for me to stand up. I wasn't really that comfortable standing up anyway. I was quite shy. I always felt more protected behind the piano. So 10 years later, I went back to Berkeley, and I got my degree in classical composition there and orchestration, and it was great. So from there, I just got more and more involved with, how can I create this? How can I create that? And inevitably, like most musicians, I ended up getting into recording, which is a natural process because you can afford it. You can feel comfortable because you're by yourself. So I got my little audio interface and all those kinds of things. And then finally, I started my little recording alone. And I used to do all my vocals. And little by little, I was producing. And then finally, I just kept growing. And then, so I kind of got into the business that way. So it's been it's been a road that has never stopped. I keep going.
So, it's a long journey that's taken you to this sort of studio in your own home here in this little corner of Sussex. Can you tell us a little about, how you've ended up here?
Well, that's very, very good questions. So I have lived, I figured out a couple of years ago, over 77 times. You can ask my kids. It's been quite an amazing adventure, and but I have to say that it gets a bit tiring moving around. And but however, I have learned to adapt and to rebuild myself every time I've moved. Every single time I've moved, I had to reinvent myself. And so I ended up, I mean, to start off with, I was from New York, then I went to Boston, I was in Pennsylvania, I lived in Colorado in the Rocky Mountains in a log cabin at 10,000 feet. I lived in Melbourne, Australia for 3 years. I lived in Paris for a while. I originally went to Paris then I lived in New Orleans. I was going back and forth between New Orleans and Colorado for about 5 years. In New Orleans, I recorded a lot of my CDs with some wonderful musicians there who are my dear friends today. And I'm very lucky to have been blessed by these great players like Johnny Vodakovich, Michael Pollara, Tony DeGrati, Chris Severin, Bill Huntington, a lot of great people. And so I would go back and forth, and then I eventually, when I went to Paris, I had always maintained these connections with everybody from all the places I had been previously. And so I kept growing that way. I kept them in my, they were always there associated with all my recordings and things like that. And then I went to London and I started my own little recording studio called Alice's Loft Music. I named it Alice's Loft because Alice is magical. So I wanted something to do with magic because I think music is kind of comes from the stars. And so I started the recording studio, which was great. And so from there it grew, but then I had to move out, unfortunately, because there was building next door to me. So I took everything out of there and I went to South London, and I was in a great place there for a while, and then I had to move out of there. And I decided to go very far out of London so I could put everything together and nobody could tell me, that I had to move again, basically, because I wanted to keep producing and things like that, and it's a lot to set up all these things. So that's how I ended up coming here to East Sussex. I love it here. It's beautiful. It looks a lot like the Adirondacks, or sometimes it reminds me of New Mexico. It's quiet. I have a dog now. And it's very, very great for recording, composition, very, very, very spiritual kind of a place. So I love it here. So that's how I got to East Sussex.
So this space kind of provides you with that quiet solitude that you know get in the countryside, but also that comfortable space and atmosphere you can bring musicians together to record. And what does the sort of space itself kind of offer the sound?
Well, this room is huge. When we came into this place and walked into this room, it's like a ballroom, I just went, it's a really great room. It's very, very long. I have 2 grand pianos here, lots of furniture, and basically, a lot of people ask me, you know, why do you not soundproof your room? And I have spent lots of money on soundproofing in the studio previously, and there was always an issue with noise. But the one thing I have learned about recording is a couple of things. First of all, if you have a really great room and you have a great engineer, very good microphones, and obviously musicians will help a lot, but you want to have ambiance, good vibe when you're recording. I think it's really important. If you have all those other things in place in the good room, you know, things will, generally speaking, sound pretty good. And so this is how I sort of function. I think about aesthetics with a studio as well as functionality. So I ended up getting these huge Louis XVI chairs. So I got the chairs because I wanted, in my old studio, I wanted to record string quartet, and I thought that I could put the first and second violinist in the chair. But it turned out it was only the cellist that could sit in the chair. So I ended up getting another one, then another one. So I have 3 of those big chairs. And chairs like this, so they all help with the sound and everything. And the big chairs, what I do is I use them for, because I used to use boom stands with everything you could possibly imagine on, you know, like blankets between the bass player and the piano and stuff like that. Now all I do is I put the chair in front of the piano. The bass player plays right into it. It sounds really great. And the other thing that's really cool is that my vocal chair, I call it my vocal chair, I discovered it's a smaller version of the Louis, but it's skinnier. And it's very tall, so it's taller than I am. And basically, I used to have these shields that you use for they're called vocal shields, which are very heavy, and they need a microphone stand to hold them up. And I used to have 2, and they kept falling over. I got completely sick and tired of this thing falling over. So I completely lost my temper one day, and I thought, why don't I just use the chair? And it sounds amazing. So if you sit in the chair, it's like a dead room. You know that sound when you hear nothing. It's really cool. And then you have this sort of like early reflections, because the wall of the chair, you can see in the shot, you're singing into it, you're getting those early returns, but the absorption as well. And then you get the room, because the room is very important when you're recording. You want to have a room sound. You don't want to be in a box. If you look at every great recording, from the old days, like Frank Sinatra, he was in a big room with a band and everything. A lot of people don't realize you don't need to be in a box. It's not necessary. And the other thing also, I wanted to make a point about sound. I really, really got interested in sound because sound, when I was really little, my father he was a surgeon, and he operated on people. He was a heart surgeon. And he operated on Mr. Moran's. And Mr. Moran's gave my father the most incredible stereo system. He built it for my father's room, his gun room, which is very popular today. But anyway, he used to collect antique guns. And the stereo was incredible. So my father would make me listen to, he collected railroad records like choo, 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 and all the sounds of, the whistle and everything like that. When I got faster and faster, and he would make me sit there and listen to them over and over, and he would say, how do you like that? So that's how I really got into sound, from that experience with my father, because I realized how important sound is. And then when you really think about it, every great record in my personal life, I finally realized only a few years ago that every single great record I've ever heard in my life is really attributed to the fact that it was recorded well. That's just something people should think about, because there are great records out there, but they really sound good because of the room they were in, the recording, everything. And it really, if you think about your favorite record, Yeah, I mean, obviously that's could be a little bit of a deviation from there, but I think it's fairly true. So that's how I got into into doing recording and putting the studio in my home. Would you like to see my studio upstairs?
Fantastic.
So this is the control room. Ta-da!
Oh my goodness, what a fantastic studio. This is amazing.
I like it.
Absolutely. So what's down here? This is the preamp down here?
Yeah, so these are all my pre's. This is my favorite. I absolutely love this MP2A. I use this a lot for all my vocals, and I can, you can do lots of other things through it, but I particularly love it for vocals because it's very forgiving. You can really control a lot of the input, and also you can change the tone, which is really nice. You want to go for a different tone. It's got a tone switch here, which is really cool. And then I have here, this is a Neve, which is a standard. It's really excellent. I use it a lot for my piano recordings, drums, things like that, and vocals. They're all really good, but I use this for everything pretty much. This is a DAV. I had that since the beginning. It's a 4-channel, and it's been great. I've been using it ever since I started the studio, and here in London, and it's been great. I've never had any problems. I mean, they're just like rocks, these things. They last forever, so they're great. This one here is an Audient, and this is cool because it has you can change the impedance on this, which is great for certain kinds of mic inputs, like ribbon mics and things like that. You can do all the rest, but it has a special thing where you can change the settings, which is cool. And this is another DAV, which is, I have another 8 tracks, so it's got 24 tracks. So this is my patch bass system, so I've got an XLR patch bass system in order, which is great because it's easy to use, and I've got all my inputs here, and I can change on the other side, so it's great. So this is my beautiful, gorgeous Bricasti M7. I love this reverb. It's so great for vocals. It really makes a huge difference when you have something like this in your studio. It's great because you can change the programs and keep them. You can keep up to, I don't know how many programs, but quite a few. And it's really easy to use as well. It's great to use, it's easy to figure out. And then I have, another thing I really love is this compressor. It's TLA 100A, and it's a really nice compressor, so I use that a lot on my vocals, or it's only got on 2 inputs, so it's not really, but basically it's great for recording vocals and stuff like that. So I always use this when I do my vocals and stuff. I record all my vocals myself, and I do a lot of other vocals as well, but for other people, but this is wonderful. So this is my hearback system. It took me a long time to figure out a system that was easy to use in my house and different studios, and so what I came up with is I have another box downstairs. And so basically this connects by Ethernet, and then the headphones connect to the box downstairs. And so then they have a unit where they can change the levels of the mix when they're recording, so they can control the input of the piano or the reverb or whatever. So it works pretty well for my setting. I love these speakers. There's a lot of great speakers out there, but these speakers are great for my room because it's quite a small room, and you can change the settings on these. So I'll tell you a little bit about these. These are called Focals Tri, and basically they have a subwoofer, a woofer, and tweeter. And the really cool thing about this is that you can actually take these screws out and turn them around depending on the size room you're in, which is really nice. So you can see this like this thing. You can put your hand on it. You can actually twist it around. The other great thing about these speakers is that they're all completely insulated from each other, so they're separate. So they're not all sort of like coming out of the same place. They're very, very packaged with inside their own compartments, and so that makes for less vibration. And it also is great because you have a lot of clarity from each speaker. And the other great thing I love about it is that they have this thing called a focus thing, where you can actually only listen to the tweeter and the woofer. And you get a different clarity with that kind of a mix. So it's really good for when you're mixing. And the last thing that's great about these speakers, which I love, is that these are very, very heavy. and because the way they're made, but basically they just don't get hot. They do not get hot at all, and a lot of speakers get really, really hot. So these are brilliant for that, and I love them because, you know, if you're in a really little room for 12 hours, it can be terrible with the heat. So these are, you know, so I'm very happy with these Focal speakers. This is my Mojave. It's called a MA300, and it's a kind of equivalent of a 67, but much less expensive. But it's a really nice mic. It's a great mic. Comes with a preamp, and I get great results with this mic. I love it. I use it a lot. You know, you can use it for many things besides vocals as well, horns and bass and things like that. So I'm really happy with this mic. This is my Presonus, and it's great. You know, it's not Capitol Records, but it does the job. It's got 24 tracks. It's got some 8 auxes on it, so I can use them for headphone mixes if I want to, if I'm not using 24 tracks. And it does a great job, and I'm very happy with it. I've had it for a long time. It never breaks, and I think I've had it for 10 years, I think. And it's fine, and so it's easy to use. Yeah, so I had this desk here built for this, so it's perfect for a small, you know, place. My other studio is much smaller than this, so this is all I need really here, so it's great.
To listen to this fantastic studio in action, you can tune in live for a stream that's taking place on the 21st of September at 5 p.m. British summertime, featuring Denise and her fantastic band, Dave O'Higgins, Jeremy Brown and Rod Young. Details of the concert will be available below. I'm Charlie Whitting. Cheerio.